Oi! Yes! Here we go, you guys. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means on this channel. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We got a pay-per-view card to break down with 15 fights on it, you guys. We have got our work cut out for us tonight. So strap it down. We're going through all 15 of these fights. We're going to get into the tail of the tape, the pro experience, the UFC experience, the finish stats, the offensive and defensive striking, the offensive and defensive grappling, the strength of schedule overall, in the wins, in the losses, the last 5 fights. And we're going to finish like we always do every week on Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. You guys, I can't wait to break down all 15 of fights with you guys. Check out who's hanging out with us here in the chat. The first one in is my guy Jazz here, JSJ23, saying, "What's up, Weezy? Is Gillette sponsoring this Roxy retirement party on Saturday?" You will have to tune in to find out, my friend. But man, oh man, Roxy is going out as a big underdog in this fight to a very young, very inexperienced fighter, but who has 3 UFC fights, 3 UFC wins, and 3 UFC finishes. So Casey O'Neill versus Roxanne Modafferi is a fight we will be talking about in detail today. Thanks for hanging out, Jazz. As always, man, much love to you. And we got Mark Schillingberg saying, "Oi, Weezy, I'm watching Lakers Bucks, and I look at the clock, and I'm like, oh, shit, we're doing Just the Tip tonight. Let's go. I'm so stoked for this card and can't wait to walk through it with you in the chat." Appreciate that, Mark. He's saying, "Smash the like. Everyone show our guy Weezy some love." I appreciate that, Mark. That means a lot, brother. We got Daz Files saying, "Tajik sponsoring the Roxy party with his 7K bet on Casey inside the distance." Oi! Man, Tajik's the man. He's such a player, and he throws around money. The last time I remember him making a big-ass bet like this that he had talked about out on Twitter was Cyril Gane inside the distance against Derek Lewis, I believe. Whatever happened, I know Tajik cashed the shit out of that bet. And yeah, he's got Casey inside the distance. Well, Casey's finished the last 3 fights. Roxy's done a lot of losing here in the UFC, but she's got some good wins. But we will talk about that. That's a great fight. I'm a big fan of Roxy, but I'm rooting for Tajik Bey to get that bet cashed, man. I'll tell you that right now. We got my guy Lou Betya in the room, one of the big players in the space, saying Weezy's the hardest working man in the space. I appreciate that, Lou. We know that Lou is a hard worker himself, and we had his debut as a content creator with Monk this weekend on Monk's channel, and that was a really good show. So I would recommend that you guys check that one out as well. We got my guy Chris for the Love MMA saying, "Oi, Unc's about to keep us up late with Just the Tip. Sounds like some real hillbilly shit, but I love it. Respect Uncle Weezy and fam. Respect to you, Chris. Always been supporting the channel, man. Much love to you, brother." And hiya, Lou, the second hardest working then. Hiya, Chris. And we got Chris saying, "I Daz, jealous of your weather right now." Yeah, Daz down there in the southern hemisphere, it's winter there. I mean, it's summer there while it's winter here. And we got 30 degrees Celsius and humid, not as nice as it sounds. It's better than what it is right here in Chicago. I'll tell you that, my man. Chris for the Love saying, "Gotta love the hardcore MMA fam." And yeah, I hate winter too, Chris. It's ridiculous. And 5 t-shirts a day and 5 at a time plus coats. We got Chronic Combat Conversations in the room, one of my favorite shows to watch. I believe they're going live tomorrow night at 9 or 9:30 Central Time. I did see I got a notification because I'm a subscriber to the channel. Those guys do a great show. They got some great stats on their channel as well. Go check them out. Good to see you guys in here as usual. We got Chris saying, "For real," the exact opposite. We got Paul Brassfield saying, "Oi." We got I Am Crypto saying, "Weezy," with the razor out there. We got my guy Andy MG saying, "Oi, great call last week, Weezy. That ass was clean shaven." Yeah, man, that Giles Almeida is something else, dude. And I thought he'd make it look easy. Frankly, he even surprised me with how, I mean, like, Marquez had absolutely nothing for him. That was a great pick for me. And I owed you guys a great pick because I had started 0 for 3 on the year. I had a 3-cheek ass shaving for the second card of the year where the Topuria fight got canceled. And then I lost out on Barcelos and Kay Hansen. Both not only lost, but really got handled in those losses. So, yeah, that was rough. But we're 1-3 this year on ass shavings, and I intend to go 2-3 after this week, you guys. We got War Dog saying, "Oi, glad to be here for another Just the Tip." Good to see you here, War Dog. We got Scott Sharp saying, "Bless up, kings and queens. Let's get that money this week. Good luck. Good luck to you too, Scott." We got Frank Sawsey saying, "Big up, Weezy. How are you, sunshine?" We were doing real well over here. We are ready to rock and do all 15 fights on this card. Metalinga saying, "Oi!" And we got Swoosh Plays Game saying, "Let's go, Weezy. Thank you so much for what you do. The stats help the Maximov bet." I'm glad, man. That Maximov bet worked out last week for sure. What up, Weezy saying, "Bunk Hoots." Lou Betya saying, "Every Friday live at 5 p.m. Eastern time." By the way, Monk and Lou Betya for the last minute DFS advice that you need on all 15 fights on the UFC 271 card. Check that out on my man Monk's channel. We got Bunkoot saying, "Oi!" And we got my guy David Milk saying, "I love how they have this big card on the Super Bowl weekend. Perfect timing." Yeah, for sure, man. And we got Silky B saying, "Our boy, job blessed." Dude, Silky B, good to see you in here, brother. Andy MG saying, "I'm excited for this card. Sneaky good fights in the undercard and some bangers in the main." It's such a good card from top to bottom. This was a treat to tape this card, I'll tell you that. Lou Betya, Morozov has amazing hat coat combo, minus 200 in absolute steel. Well, if you got a hat as good as Shavkat, I'm betting on you, man. I'll be there. Chronic says, "Daz File, great show you do." Yes, absolutely. That's for sure, man. Frank Sawsey saying, "Weezy, let's get it, brother. You and Clint, two best cappers in the game. Do agree Bobby Green is the lock of the week." I wouldn't say the lock of the week because Bobby Green is in a lot of close fights, but there's a lot of ways that I believe he can win minutes in this fight. And if he does that and he fights very smart, I do like his chances to win this fight, Frank, for sure. We got my guy Jarno in the room saying, "Let's go." Sergio saying, "Yeah, Maximov came through for me." Good. I'm glad, dude, because I picked him myself. And Tristan saying, "Looking forward to your Morozov breakdown." And Frank saying, "Thanks, buddy." Yeah, the Morozov breakdown, dude. I was up until 3:30 in the morning watching tape on De Andrade, and then I started on the Morozov tape, but about 3:30 I gassed out, and then I had to pick it up again in the morning for Morozov, man. I'm ready. But you know what, you guys? We're going to see who else is ready right now, and I'm ready to share my screen and see if my guy Smooth Jimmy is ready to rock here. And if he is, we could start breaking down all 15 fights on this card from a statistical perspective, from east to west, from nose to toes, from left to right. We're going to hit you with all the stats on all 15 fights and see if we can't find some spots that we can make some money off the bookies this weekend. You guys stack cash tickets like flapjacks. As you can see on the screen, my guy Smooth Jimmy Apollo, the consummate professional that he is absolutely ready to go. And if Smooth Jimmy's ready to go, that means I'm ready to go, you guys. And let's start like we always do with the tail of the tape on the curtain jerker fight, which is going to be Jeremiah Wells versus Blood Diamond. Blood Diamond making his UFC debut at age 33 against a 35-year-old Jeremiah Wells. It's going to be Blood Diamond here with a 2-inch height advantage, and it'll be Wells with a 2-inch reach advantage, and both of these guys are switch stance fighters. Blood Diamond fighting out of City Kickboxing in New Zealand, and Jeremiah Wells repping the Henzo Gracie Philly crew over in Philadelphia. Philadelphia stand up. We got Jeremiah Wells with a considerable pro fights experience here. 9 more pro fights than Blood Diamond, over 100 more minutes in the cage, and about 4.5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist, and 1 more UFC fight as well. Jeremiah Wells has finished 7 of his 9 wins inside the distance, 4 by knockout, 3 by submission, and he has never been finished in any of his losses. while Blood Diamond has finished one of his wins by submission, one by knockout, and one by decision. He's only 3-0, though, as a pro. We don't have any striking statistics or grappling statistics on Blood Diamond. Jeremiah Wells in his UFC fight beat Warley Alves, a guy who came into that fight at a 8-4 record, if I remember correctly. So, this is a big win for Wells. When you watch the footage on this guy, he's a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. Blood Diamond, on the other hand, is a very erratic kickboxer, very unpredictable, very fun to watch. Everything comes from strange angles. Everything is a lot of spinning stuff, a lot of just flashy striking. But I just think that this is going to be an easy fight for Jeremiah Wells because Jeremiah has excellent wrestling. He's got a ton of power in his own right. He's way more experienced as a mixed martial artist. He's fought the way better brand of competition. And I love his ability to be able to mix in the grappling with the striking, but he's dangerous everywhere. Now, what do we know about Blood Diamond? We know that he trains with Israel Adesanya. We know that he really hasn't fought UFC level competition yet. His submission win was over a 0-0 guy named Hun Min Wang. And then he also beat somebody named Joe Van Duyn. And his big win is over the inimitable Dimps Gillies by unanimous decision. And that was actually kind of a close fight. Dimps actually had his moments. While we see Vinicius de Jesus on Wells' record, Warley Alves. And then if we go here to Tapology, I can take you through a few more of these fights that Wells has had. But we'll see that he has fought the much better brand of competition, you guys. What is happening here? Let's see here. Okay. Jeremiah Wells, 9-2-1 as a pro, has wins over Warley Alves, Marco Smallman, 6-2, Mumia Abu Day Ali, 3-1, Jason Norwood, 18-5 in CES, John Manley, 11-4 in CNS, Gary Boleto Jr., 5-1. He's got a loss to Manny Wallow. So John Manley is a guy who has been around the block. Jason Norwood as well. Those were a couple of pretty good wins here. A loss to Vinicius de Jesus by decision in a 5-round fight. But he's fought the way better brand of competition. He's way more well-rounded here. And we can get Jeremiah Wells, I believe, at -220 to win this fight over Blood Diamond. On Bet Online. That is going to be the bet for me, you guys. I probably will be either putting Wells in a parlay or betting him straight up on the money line. I don't know enough about Blood Diamond here to think that he's going to be better than Wells anywhere at this point, So, it's going to be Blood Diamond, and I'm picking him to win. It's going to be Jeremiah Wells, and I am picking him to win inside the distance, you guys. The next fight is a very interesting fight. This is the Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Sergey Morozov fight. So Morozov is going to be 4 years younger here at 32 years of age. It's going to be Douglas Silva de Andrade, who is an inch taller. I don't believe that, by the way. I don't believe he's going to be taller than Morozov. And a 1-inch reach advantage for Silva here. We got Douglas Silva fighting out of Corinthians MMA in Brazil, and it's Sergey Morozov out of Erkin Kush in Kazakhstan. You usually see Zhalgas Zhumagulov in Morozov's corner. It's going to be de Andrade here with a 10-fight pro experience advantage, but it's actually Morozov who has more minutes in the cage, having fought 15 more minutes. Both of these guys have fought well over 10 years as pro mixed martial artists. 14.5 for Douglas Silva, almost 14 for Sergey Morozov. A lot more of de Andrade's experiences at the UFC level with 9 UFC fights compared to only 2 for Morozov, and a lot more minutes in the UFC cage. When we look at how these guys are finishing fights, Douglas Silva de Andrade is mainly a kickboxer, you guys. He's finished all but one of his finishes are knockouts, while Morozov has finished 47% by knockout and 18% by sub. And in these guys' 9 combined losses, 6 of them have finished inside the distance. So we could see this fight finishing inside the distance for sure here. We've only got I believe, a couple of fights here for Morozov in the UFC, but he's not landing a lot or getting landed on a lot. He's a little more accurate here in the striking at 42% to 38 for Douglas Silva de Andrade. Silva de Andrade showing some really nice power here for the bantamweight division, averaging 0.41 knockdowns per 15 minutes. But he's absorbing more significant strikes per minute than he lands. And they're both showing good striking defense, but they've both never been knocked down. So Silva de Andrade will have the power advantage here. Sergey's done a really good job with 64.63% striking defense. But the difference here, you guys, is going to be in the grappling. As we see, Douglas Silva de Andrade has 5 takedowns in 9 fights and has averaged less than 4% control time in his 9 UFC fights. So Douglas is going to try to keep this fight standing, while Sergey is pretty good on the feet. He's a very well-rounded mixed martial artist, but he's going to be better than Douglas Silva in the wrestling and in the grappling here. Sergey Morozov has absolutely fought some of the toughest grapplers that exist in mixed martial arts today, 2 of them being Umar Nurmagomedov and Movsar Evloev. He has fought both of these guys. He's also dominated a lot of other guys on the Russian regional scene in M1 using that grappling, using that wrestling. So I believe that Sergey Morozov's best path to victory here is going after the wrestling. Now, there's something troubling here because we do have a good sample size of fights for Silva de Andrade, and he's shown 66.67% takedown defense. He's getting taken down 1.5 times per 15 minutes, but he's only yielding 11% control time. So that would mean that he is probably been controlled 12 minutes on 33 takedown attempts. So he's been a very hard guy to take down and hold down. But one thing that I want to bring up here, you guys, is the fact that in this Renan Barao fight that Silva de Andrade won by unanimous decision, Barao took him down 3 times, and 2 of those 3 times he was stood up. Barao was stood up almost immediately by the ref Osiris Maia. They were very, very quick stand-ups. And I believe that if people wrestled Andrade more, that they would have more success because this guy hasn't shown much of a grappling game or takedown defense thus far in the UFC. The best that I saw him do was in his debut against Zubaira Tukhugov, where Tukhugov had 3 takedowns on him, but I think less than 60 seconds of control time. So Silva de Andrade was popping right back up when Tukhugov was taking him down. And it's also important to note that Silva de Andrade has fought quite a few fights in his career at 145 pounds, you guys. So I just want to take you through that real quick here. And by the way, all these stats that we're looking at here, you guys, there is a link to these stats in the description of this video. You can download them for free and kind of follow around, follow along while we're going through all these fights. But we see his debut was at 145. Then he fought several fights at 135, then went back up to 145 to fight Barao and Murphy, went back down to 135 to fight Pirello, and then now we got Morozov is going to be a 135 fight as well. Morozov is going to wrestle the shit out of him. And I think he's going to have a lot of success getting on top, staying on top, winning a lot of minutes there. And then also, I think that de Andrade is a little bit low volume on the feet. So I don't know if he's going to win a ton of minutes there as well. But what Silva de Andrade does do very well, you guys, is he throws a variety of strikes, and he's very unpredictable. So, one thing that you can count on from him is just being completely, wild. And he probably will throw a lot of spinning stuff. He throws jump knees. He throws with both hands, knees, elbows, spinning stuff, head kicks. So, there will probably be a lot of chances for Morozov to react at the offense that Silva de Andrade throws his way in order to set up his takedowns if he's not doing it with his own striking. So even though we haven't seen a lot of people successfully grapple Silva de Andrade, he's not seeing a ton of wrestling yet, and I believe Morozov will probably be one of the best wrestlers that he's faced thus far. But it is Silva de Andrade who has faced a much tougher competition in the UFC. Look at the last 5 names: Marlon Vera, Peter Yan, Henan Barao, Laron Murphy, and then he got a free one with Gaetano Perello. But even before that, he was fighting guys like Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera, Rob Font, Tukugov. So this guy is fighting killers, and then the current bantamweight champion in Peter Yan. Well, he will be. So, yeah, even though Silva de Andrade has fought the better competition, I don't think that his grappling has been tested yet in the way that Morozov is going to test it. And Morozov has got excellent wrestling, excellent top control, very good ground and pound, and he's a very smart fighter. He's not going to play Douglas Silva de Andrade's game here, and he's not going to give Doug the fight that he wants. So I'm picking Sergey Morozov to win this fight by decision, you guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got a late finish in this one after getting a lot of control time and takedowns and really wearing out Douglas Silva de Andrade, who was probably having a very difficult time to make this weight cut down to 135, especially at his advanced age. He's a 36-year-old bantamweight who has spent a lot of his career at featherweight because this cut is too tough for him to make. So Sergey Morozov is without question one of my more confident picks this week, as is Jeremiah Wells, you guys. Next fight is a very, very intriguing fight. Jacob Malkoun versus AJ Dobson. If you guys haven't watched the tape on Dobson yet, go enjoy yourselves and watch it. But wait until just the tip is over, because we got a lot of business to take care of here tonight. And but this guy Dobson's fun to watch, man. He absolutely comes in there to take your head off and punt it into the upper deck. And if you're not careful, he will. So Jacob Malkoun is a fun guy for him to fight because he's fought 2 very powerful knockout artists, Phil Hawes and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And he comes in and he has his UFC debut against Phil Hawes, and he gets absolutely melted in 15 seconds. Looks like total garbage. Didn't even throw a strike. Backed up the entire fight. Had absolutely nothing for Phil Hawes. Then he's going to fight Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who's known for absolutely melting dudes in the first round, just like Phil Hawes did to him. And everybody's on Al Hassan. And this guy comes out there, puts on his wrestling singlet, and racks up 8 takedowns against Razak Al Hassan, and even outstrikes him in the 3rd round. So we've seen 2 different Jacob Malkouns. But Jacob Malkoun has seen the same kind of opponent now 3 times in a row, because Dobson is a guy who destroys people in the first round. And when Phil Hawes is at his best, that's what he's doing. And Abdul Razak has never won a fight that got out of the first round. So every single win that Abdul Razak Al Hassan has is a first round knockout. So in my opinion, the statistics really don't mean a lot here. Both of these guys have only 6 pro fights, are both very inexperienced at the beginning of their careers. The question is, does AJ Dobson have the defensive wrestling skills in order to keep this fight standing long enough that he finds Jacob Malkoun's chin? Because AJ Dobson hits very, very hard. And when you see the tape on this guy, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know that AJ Dobson is training over there, I believe it's Strong Style MMA. It has him here. Yeah, Strong Style is what my spreadsheet is showing. And I know that he also trains with Mark Coleman, and I hear that he's also training with Matt Brown. So this guy is getting some good work with some UFC legends in Stipe Miocic, Mark Coleman, and Matt Brown. And he's got the kind of terrifying power that is an absolutely fantastic starting point for a young mixed martial artist that's getting better. So he's going to be working on that wrestling. And I think he knows after the Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight, that he's going to need to be on point with his wrestling defense here. And that if he is, that Jacob Malkoun is the kind of guy who can be melted with one punch. And AJ Dobson is absolutely the guy who can make that happen. So whatever side of this fight you're on, there is absolutely an argument that supports you. If you're on the Malkoun side, I would say you're betting him to win by decision. You're betting him to blanket AJ Dobson, potentially even drown him late, and get a third round finish. If Dobson has never been put to that kind of a test before. And checking out the tape on this guy, I've never seen it. He's been to one decision. He won that fight, but there's no tape available on it. So I haven't seen how Dobson looked when he went the distance. But I do see how he looks when he starches dudes in the first round. And he's such a big, strong guy, and he's training with the right people right now. That leads me to believe that what this fight is going to be is an AJ Dobson first round knockout, you guys. That is going to be my pick for this fight. Like I say, you can download these stats in the description of the video and go along with us. But when we've got 3 combined UFC fights here, we know that there's definitely not enough data here for us to be really kind of putting too much faith in it. But Jacob Malkoun, 76.36% control time for. AJ Dobson has actually done the same thing, even doing a little bit better than that. So, yeah, these guys are both great prospects. They're both pretty young, but I think Malkoun's younger. It's Malkoun who's 26 and Dobson who's 30. But Dobson's going to be the much bigger man here at 4 inches taller and 3-inch reach advantage, and he's got serious power. And we've seen Jacob Malkoun melted with one shot before. So like I say, you guys, the pick is AJ Dobson by first round knockout. And here we got another one. Carlos Ulberg against Fabio Cherant, you guys. It's Cherant who is 4 years younger, but it's Ulberg who's the much bigger man here, the taller man, I should say, longer, at 6'4" and a 77-inch reach. So he's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's got a 3-inch height advantage, does Ulberg over Cherant. So we got Cherant is the southpaw. Ulberg is the orthodox fighter, fighting out of City Kickboxing here. And it's Fabio Cherant who has recently switched his camp over to Sanford MMA. I believe that before that, Fabio was training with Joe Lozon up there in the Northeast. And we've got Cherant with the experience advantage here. He's got twice as many fights, twice as much cage time, and about 1 more year as a pro mixed martial artist. And he's got 1 more fight at the UFC level as well, although the cage time is pretty similar here. Fabio Cherant has never knocked anybody out. He has 5 of his career 7 wins are by submission, and he's been finished in all 3 of his losses, twice by knockout, once by submission. And Carlos Ulberg here has finished 100% of his UFC wins by knockout, and he's finished 2 of his 3 pro wins by knockout, and he's been knocked out in his only loss. So in these guys' 4 combined losses, all of them have finished inside the distance. And, I think that the way for Ulberg to be finished, since his background is kickboxing, would be by submission, and that Cherant has been knocked out twice. And boy, when his chin got touched for the first time hard in both of those fights, man, he went down. So I think that this is a fight where we can really feel safe that Cherant Ulberg finishes inside the distance, you guys. And I think that fight doesn't go to decision as a definite parlay piece for this fight. But we don't have a lot of stats again, you guys. But Ulberg, look at that. He's landing 15 significant strikes per minute and only absorbing 8.6. He gassed out against Kennedy and Chekwu. And Kennedy in that fight, if you haven't seen it, employed the Homer Simpson boxing strategy absolutely perfectly. Let your opponent hit you in the head 3,000 times straight. Don't fall down. And then when he exhausts himself from hitting your Easter Island-like skull 300 times, then you push him over lightly and get the knockout victory. And that's what Kennedy did against Carlos Ulberg there. But, you saw that he put on a crazy striking clinic in that fight, 62% striking accuracy. But he did get knocked down after getting hurt. But Fabio Cherant has been knocked down twice in only 61 significant strikes absorbed. He's very chinny. This is set up for a Carlos Ulberg knockout or a Fabio Cherant submission. But either way you go, I believe that this fight will be finishing inside the distance. I am terrified that Fabio Cherant does not have a UFC level chin. And if you can't absorb strikes at the 205-pound division, you're going to be getting hit hard all the time there unless you're absolutely perfect. And here's the other thing. I would be a lot more likely to bet Cherant as a big underdog here if I thought that he could wrestle effectively against Ulberg. Unfortunately, there's no evidence to suggest on film anywhere in any of Cherant's previous fights that this guy can get the fight to the ground and keep it there. So with all that being said, I am picking Carlos Ulberg to win this fight by first round knockout. Let's move on. This is a great fight, you guys. Watched a bunch of tape on both of these guys. I'm very excited for this. I'm shocked that this isn't on the main card. I'm shocked that Kyler Phillips is on the main card instead of this fight, because these are two very, very good lightweights with very well-rounded skill sets that have fought the upper level of every division that they've been in, whether it's the featherweights and the lightweights for Moicano, the lightweights for Hernandez. This guy got introduced to the UFC by knocking out Beneil Dariush in less than a minute. So this is a great fight. So let me, I've got my Paloma here because it's going to be a long night, you guys. My God. All right. That was lovely. Let's go, you guys. Alexander Hernandez against Renato Moicano. Hernandez, 3 years younger. Moicano, the taller guy here. And these guys have an identical reach. They both are orthodox fighters. Factory X for Anthony Hernandez. Constrictor team and American top team for Renato Moicano. It's Moicano with the experience advantage, having 3 more pro fights, 8 more minutes in the cage, and about 2.5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. While he's got 3 more UFC level fights and about 25 more minutes in the UFC cage as well. Renato Moicano finishes his fights by submission, you guys. He's a former world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player. He's a black belt, and this guy absolutely gets rear naked chokes like they're going out of style. And let's first got to give some love to Tiffany Shriver. Ring a ding ding, you guys. This is a donation from Tiffany Shriver supporting her uncle Weezy. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for the donation. It is much appreciated. Much love coming out your way. Thank you so much. But let's get back to the stats here, you guys. We see Hernandez finishing 46% by knockout and 15% by submission, while we got a 61% finish rate overall, 53% for Moicano. Moicano has been finished in all 4 of his pro losses, and Hernandez has been finished in 2 of his 4 pro losses. So 6 of these guys' 8 combined losses have happened inside the distance. So there's a high probability here that either Hernandez could get a knocked out or Moicano could get a sub. So I'm going to be looking for a fight doesn't go to decision prop for this fight. When we look at the striking numbers, we see Hernandez is absorbing just a little more than he lands, not showing the greatest accuracy, but showing a ton of power. While we see Moicano here landing a lot more than he absorbs, landing 5.12, absorbing 3.43. He's more accurate but less powerful than Hernandez, but he's been better defensively with a 65.76% striking defense, while Hernandez has been pretty good defensively as well at about 59%. But it's Moicano who's been a little more chinny, getting knocked down on about 1.5 times more of the significant strikes that land against him. So Moicano has been chinnier, and he's been finished inside the distance by knockout 3 out of his 4 pro losses. But the big difference here, you guys, is going to be the grappling. Renato Moicano said it right after the Jai Herbert fight. And he said, I fell in love with the box. I talked about this on Stat Diggers. One of my favorite quotes. I fell in love with the box. But he was talking about how it was so stupid of him to fall in love with his hands, because he's been a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor for something like 14, 15 years, a world champion. And he always knew that this was the best part of his game. But then he went out there and he beat Calvin Kattar in a boxing match, really beat Calvin Kattar soundly, you guys. Beat his legs, beat him all 3 rounds. Really a masterclass striking performance by Moicano. And I think it led him to believe that now he was even a better striker than he was a grappler. And when he got back to his grappling roots, especially in the Hadzovic and the Herbert fights, we saw him getting quick finishes. We saw him getting those rear naked chokes, getting in and out of there, fighting like he's double parked and fighting to his strengths. Hernandez is going to want to keep this fight standing, and he is so explosive early in fights, you guys. Darts in and out, moves very well laterally. When he explodes into punch, either with one or with combinations, it's done with very bad intentions. However, that style can only be maintained for so long before you tax your gas tank. And you watch Hernandez early in fights, and that is when he's at his most dangerous. I believe we're seeing a new Renato Moicano here, you guys. One that is going to rely on his grappling. I think he's learned his lesson. I know that he can stand with Hernandez for a little bit, and we don't have to worry about him necessarily getting knocked out right away. But the sooner he gets to the grappling in this fight, the sooner we're going to find out, how good this takedown defense is of Hernandez. Because we see here that he's only been controlled for 7% of his UFC career in 8 UFC fights. That's excellent. But look, he's only faced 8 takedown attempts in 8 fights as Alexander Hernandez. And we see that Moicano, even though he's not shooting a ton of takedowns, less than 2 per fight, he's getting them at a 60% clip. He's averaging almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 13.67% to 2.78%. So he's doing a good job of winning minutes on the ground and being more efficient in the grappling exchanges. And when he gets the fight to the ground, he advances position, and he's looking exclusively for the rear naked choke. So he'll get on top of you, he'll work to mount, he'll start with the striking, and he's just begging for you to turn your back. Once you turn your back, he gets those hooks in, and then he sinks in the rear naked choke. That's how he submits guys. Moicano, in my opinion, a very big grappling advantage here. And I think he will be able to get the fight to the ground. I also think that while Moicano has the ability to win minutes on the feet, it's going to be Hernandez who's going to be so dangerous early in that first round. I think if this fight gets out of the first round, we're going to see Moicano start to wrestle a lot and win minutes in the second and third rounds and potentially win this fight. But he's going to have to survive the first round first. And when we look at the strength of schedule here, you guys, we're going to see actually a tougher strength of schedule here for Hernandez overall with a better ratio and more total fights. And even in the wins, they're both beating experienced competition, but it's Hernandez who's beating the much better win-loss competition. The average guy that Alexander Hernandez beats has an 8.4 win and 3.4 loss record, while for Moicano, it's 6.57 and 4.71 losses. So the strength of schedule is in favor of Hernandez. The striking, in my opinion, is in favor of Hernandez because he's more likely to land the big shots. And then also Hernandez is younger and they have the same reach. So I like the tail of the tape for Hernandez. I do believe Moicano has the experience advantage and a very big grappling edge here. I like this fight to finish inside the distance, and I think it's going to be Renato Moicano by second round sub, you guys. That being said, I can't bet it at this line. Right now, Moicano is sitting at minus 170, minus 165 on DraftKings. I would like to see some more money coming in on Hernandez here. If you're on the Hernandez side, I think taking a shot at the Hernandez first round KO or just Hernandez round 1 at plus 400, but Hernandez by first round KO is plus 500. I kind of like that. I think that's his best path to victory here. And early in fights, he's so explosive. And we've seen Moicano hurt by power shots early in fights before. So I think that that's a good possibility. But yet, I am very interested to see how good Renato Moicano is if he grapples first and keeps that in his mind. And it seems like he's learned his lesson. So I'm going to be going with Renato Moicano to get this fight to the ground. And if Hernandez makes any mistakes down there, I think that, he's going to get his neck snatched up, and it'll be Renato Moicano by rear naked choke. So, yeah, that's going to be the pick, you guys. It's going to be Moicano by second round sub. You guys, we got a great fight here. And let me zoom back in on the numbers. I apologize for that on the last fight. We've got Ronnie Lawrence going up against Leomana Martinez. We got it's Lawrence, who's 29 years of age here. Leomana, 25. And Leomana is going to be 2 inches taller and have a 2-inch reach advantage. Lawrence fights out of switch stance, while Mana is orthodox, but I've seen Mana switch his stances as well. Metro Fight Club for Mana, and it's ATT for Ronnie Lawrence. 3 more pro fights for Mana, but about 18 more minutes in the pro cage for Ronnie Lawrence, about a year longer as a pro. Both of these guys have 2 UFC level fights. Both of them have fought in the Contender Series and had 1 UFC level fight. Let's see. So it's Mana, who's 1-1. Ronnie Lawrence is 2-0. Mana Martinez has finished 8 of his 9 wins inside the distance by knockout, and he's been subbed in 1 of his 2 pro losses, while Ronnie Lawrence has never subbed anybody, and he has knocked out 4 of his 7 pro wins and has never been finished in his only loss. When we look at the numbers for these guys, nothing special here for Mana, only 1 fight. He landed more than he absorbed, 51% striking accuracy, only 40% striking defense. That's troubling. While Ronnie Lawrence in 2 fights is absolutely destroying his opponents, outlanding his opponents in significant strikes at a 3-to-1 ratio, only allowing 1.09 significant strikes absorbed per minute, showing over 60% striking defense, and then out-controlling his opponents at almost a 10-to-1 ratio on the ground. 20 of 26 on his takedown attempts for 77% takedown percentage and 65% control time for. Look, you guys, in these 2 fights that we've seen Ronnie Lawrence in the UFC and in the fight prior to the UFC that he had in LFA, this guy has put on a masterclass. The striking is good. The movement is good. The defense is good. The conditioning is unbelievable. He's got great size for the division. And the funny thing is here, we don't see a number like this. 26 takedown attempts in 2 fights, gets 20 of them, controlling 2/3 of his UFC cage time, which is 27 minutes at this point, 18 minutes of control time in 2 fights. These are video game numbers. And Ronnie Lawrence doesn't even have a high school or college wrestling background. I think this guy's a freak, you guys. I think he's incredibly gifted. I think he's an MMA savant. He's put it all together. When you watch his regional scene footage, you don't see much of the wrestling. You see a lot of striking, and he is kind of hittable. The thing that worries me most about Ronnie Lawrence in this fight is he does carry that chin kind of high. And against somebody that hits as hard as Leomana, that could be a problem. I think one prop that sticks out that's available right now, Leomana Martinez by first round KO, is plus 1,000, 10-to-1. I like that because I think that that's his only path to victory here. Ronnie Lawrence has won basically every minute of every fight that he's been here in the UFC thus far, and that's 27.63 minutes of cage time. And they called him special. And and I'll tell you something. You know who else called him special? Pat Miletich. And I miss Pat Miletich calling those LFA fights. One of my favorite, color guys in in mixed martial arts for the history of mixed martial arts. Pat Miletich, one of my favorite guys to listen to. And boy, he was just raving about Ronnie Lawrence after his performance in LFA. That fight was the Garrett Armfield fight. Just a fantastic performance by Ronnie. This guy is different. And the problem with Ronnie that we've had recently is that he's clearly having a hard time making 135 pounds. So at the current line, I'm not betting him. But I think that the play for Ronnie Lawrence, if he makes weight and looks good doing it on Saturday, or I mean on Friday, I think you can parlay this dude up, and then you can just hedge it with Amanda Martinez first round knockout. But I think Ronnie Lawrence by round 3 or by decision is a great bet this week. I'm really blown away by how good Ronnie Lawrence has looked thus far in the UFC. And I just don't see, I have seen Amanda Martinez taken down and controlled for swaths. He's not the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and wrestler that there is. And I just think that you have to be elite with your takedown defense, but you also have to be elite with your conditioning if you're gonna fight 3 rounds with Ronnie Lawrence. And I think that this is a test that Amanda Martinez is just not ready for yet. Like I say, you guys, I think Ronnie Lawrence is different, and I think he's gonna make this look pretty easy. Mixing in that wrestling along with his striking. He throws a lot of spinning shit from the outside, and he is accurate, and he moves incredibly well. I think, he's as good defensively as I've seen a lot of fighters at this point in their career. And what I mean by that is that if you're going to be good defensively, that's partially based on how you run your offense as a fighter. Because, you can wrestle your opponents, put their back to the mat. And when you're in certain positions, you're really not in any danger. And that's part of being defensively responsible, is fighting your opponent's weakness and putting them in positions where they can't hurt you, whether it's clinching up against the cage, whether it's taking them down and putting their fucking shoulder blades against the mat. Being defensively responsible is just as important as in a defensive mindset as it is how you plan your offensive game plan. And I'm seeing that out of Lawrence thus far. I've seen Amanda Martinez win 8 of 9 fights inside the distance by knocking dudes out. It doesn't seem like he has a well-rounded game. It seems like he's either doing that or he's just not looking that great. And he did not look great against a 44-year-old Guido Canetti in his UFC debut, you guys. So the pick is going to be Ronnie Lawrence. The bet, when it's available, will be Ronnie Lawrence by round 3 or decision. I want to see him weigh in first, but I do like Ronnie Lawrence quite a bit in this spot, you guys. Got 45 of you guys hanging out with me here on a Tuesday night, almost midnight Eastern time. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for hanging out. God bless each and every one of you. We still got a lot of fights to go through here. I think maybe 9 more, but I'm going to try to keep this under 2 hours this week. We got 15 fights to break down. The next one, you guys, is going to be William Knight, the Nightmare, versus Maxim Grishin. It is William Knight who's going to be the younger man here at 33 years of age. Maxim is 37. It's going to be Maxim who's the much larger man here at 6'3". He's going to be 4 inches taller, 5 inches taller, and have a 5-inch reach advantage. Both these guys are orthodox fighters. Maxim Grishin is trained all over the world, mostly out of Akhmat Fight Club. And we got William Knight out of Thornton Martial Arts here. Maxim Grishin, 42 professional fights, you guys. So he's got a massive experience advantage here over Knight. He's been doing this for 10 years longer. He's got over 230 more minutes of cage time. But it's actually William Knight who's fought about half of his pro career at the UFC level. Excuse me. Oh, boy. Apologies, you guys. It's William Knight who's fought a much higher percentage of his pro career at the UFC level, but Maxim Grishin has been fighting some of the greats of the sport. I mean, he's got a rear naked choke victory over Alexander Volkov back in 2010. This guy's fought Trevor Prangley. He's fought just about everybody, and he's got a lot of notable wins that came before he even got into the UFC. Grishin is more of a kickboxer, while William Knight is really kind of a brawler. William Knight's done a great job, clinching up with guys, with using his wrestling. He throws great low leg kicks. And Maxim Grishin uses his length and his kickboxing first, but he can mix in the wrestling, ground and pound, and he has some submissions on his record. He's won 6 fights by submission. So this guy does have more than one way to get it done. He's way more experienced and way bigger than Knight. Who's going to be the better kickboxer? It's going to be Maxim Grishin, because he's going to know how to use that reach advantage that he has. He can evade Knight. Knight's going to have to just pressure him, because he's going to need to close distance on Maxim. But William Knight here has got a big problem with striking defense. He's shown a 37% striking defense thus far in the UFC, and that's in a 6-fight sample size, you guys. He is landing a lot more than he absorbs, but he's also throwing a lot more than he absorbs, and he's been very accurate when he does throw. So it's going to be an interesting fight on the feet. I think we're going to see William Knight pressuring Maxim. I think we're going to see Maxim trying to use his length, trying to use his jab and his kicks in order to keep William Knight at bay. But the thing is that even if William Knight does pressure him and put him up against the cage, Maxim Grishin is excellent there. And I think that he might even be able to wear on William there, because he's so much taller and bigger. Maxim is another guy we got to keep our eye on in terms of how he weighs in, because he is a huge dude and he is very difficult, has a difficult time trying to cut down to 206. So William Knight been 9 of 19 on his UFC takedowns in 6 fights, but he's only managed 11% takedown, control time. So even though he's averaging more than 2 takedowns for 15 minutes, he's really only gotten about 7 minutes of control time on those 9 takedowns. And he's showing less than 50% takedown defense as well. And he's been controlled for almost 40% of his UFC cage time. So he needs to be careful here about not only, losing minutes on the feet, but he has to be careful that Grishin doesn't win minutes on the cage and on the ground here, because if he gives up this kind of control time to Grishin, it's going to be a difficult way. It's going to be difficult for him to win this fight. But Grishin has given up a lot of control time as well in the UFC. He's got 9.72% control time but he's been controlled 32.19% of the time, 66% takedown defense, and he's been taken down 1.5 times. When we look at the strength of schedule here, it's Knight with the better ratio, but Grishin, who's fighting the much more experienced competition. The wins are a little bit better for William Knight, I would say. The loss is better for Grishin. But yeah, you look at the last 5 for Knight: Brundage, Kamer, Da Unjung, Fabio Cherant, Alonzo Menafield. And here we see Dustin Jacoby, Gadzimurad Antigulov, Marcin Tybura up at heavyweight, Jordan Johnson, and Mikhail Maktanin. So I would say that Knight has actually fought the better brand of competition. I love his pacing. His conditioning is absolutely fantastic. But Grishin's kind of a big favorite here. Right now, we see Grishin sitting at about minus 170, and Knight is taking this fight on short notice, you guys. So if he's not ready, then his greatest attribute in this fight would be his conditioning, in my opinion. Grishin does slow down, so we could see Knight, if he's on point and ready to go on short notice, we could see his conditioning be a big factor in this fight. I do think Grishin will be the better kickboxer here, but I don't know if William Knight's going to let him get comfortable. And if William Knight looks good on the scale, I think he's worth a shot at plus 150 here. I don't think he's going to give Grishin the fight he wants. I think he's going to constantly pressure him. And I think that he's going to try to negate that reach and size advantage by getting in there in the clinch, by trying to take him down, and by trying to drown him early. And if he does all those things well, I think he can absolutely scrape out a greasy decision here over Maxim Grishin, who has lost one greasy decision here in the past to Dustin Jacoby. And we really haven't seen much of the wrestling, tested here. So I think that Knight will put that on him, and we will have a chance to see whether this guy, can push that kind of pace in order to beat Maxim Grishin here. So I'm going to pick the younger guy, the hungrier guy in William Knight, the guy with the gas tank. And I think that he can get it done by decision over Maxim Grishin here. So I'm going to be looking at a William Knight by decision prop as well as looking at the plus 150. But we got Knight by decision, you guys, on 5 dimes is plus 450. I think that's how he wins this fight. And I think that would be a very interesting situation there. But still no props really coming out on that one. So we'll have to wait for him. But anyway, yeah, you guys, the pick is going to be William Knight by decision. Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. This fight was supposed to happen last year at the end of the year. I've broken this fight down before. I have a balls deep breakdown available on this fight if you want to find a really in-depth look at this fight. So I'm going to just kind of cruise through the stats here. As a matter of fact, I'm really not going to go into the stats that much. Perez has got an experience advantage. It's Schnell who has a size advantage here. These guys are both potent finishers, and they both get finished inside the distance. So I think this is going to be one of the rare flyweight fights that we see juiced to the under, where we're going to have to pay minus 140, minus 150 for the fight doesn't go to decision here, because both of these guys not only win inside the distance a lot, but they lose inside the distance a lot. Even in these guys' 6 combined UFC losses between Perez and Schnell, I've got 5 of those 6 losses have been inside the distance. And when we look at the combined 12 losses for these guys, it is 5 for Perez and 4. So 9 of 12, 75% of these guys' losses have come inside the distance. I think that this is Alex Perez by knockout or Matt Schnell by submission. Schnell not showing good takedown defense here, you guys. He has 50% takedown defense, while Alex Perez has gotten 11 takedowns in 9 fights and is averaging just under 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Plus, Perez has shown a ton of power here, landing 3 knockdowns in 9 UFC fights. That's a big number for the flyweight division. And we've seen Schnell get knocked down 2 times in 9 fights. So I think Perez could land a big shot here early. I also think that Schnell could potentially lock up a submission on the ground. So, and Perez has been submitted in his 6 losses. He's been submitted 4 times. So I like this fight to finish inside the distance. I think it's going to be Alex Perez who wins this fight early, probably under 1.5 rounds by knockout. When we look at the strength of schedule stats here for this one, you guys, very similar here. And in the wins, I would say that Schnell's wins are a little bit better, and it's Alex Perez who's lost to the much better competition here. But definitely Schnell's losses are not bad either. When we look at the last 5, you look at these guys on Perez's resume: Benavidez, the Bumblebee, Jordan Espinoza, Jussier Formiga, and Davison Figueiredo. And then we see some good names here at Bontarine and Pantoja, but then Smoka, Espinoza as well, and Nam. So I'd say Perez has a little bit better strength of schedule here, especially in the last 5. I think he's going to be the much more dangerous striker and the much more dangerous wrestler. So I think he has more ways to win this fight. The bookies do as well, as I think he's almost a minus 400. Yeah, he is a minus 400 favorite on a couple of books here. Matt Schnell on the comeback at plus 300. If you're looking to take a stab that has some fat numbers on it, you can get Schnell inside the distance at plus 650. I think that's how he wins if he does win. And I think Schnell by submission, if you can get it better than plus 700, is certainly something to look at, you guys, because Schnell does lock up triangles, and Perez hasn't been particularly defensively responsible with his grappling. 4 submission losses in his career. So I do think that there's definitely a situation where Schnell gets a submission win here. And I think that this fight finishes inside the distance. But my pick is going to be Alex Perez by first round knockout. And like I said, if you want an in-depth breakdown of this fight, let's go to my channel, check out the balls deep breakdown I did on the Schnell fight. All right. And let's get back here to the fight that our guy Tajik Bey has a huge bet on, and it is Roxanne Modafferi going up against Casey O'Neill, you guys. All right. Casey O'Neill is 15 years younger than Roxanne Modafferi. I don't know if there's any mixed martial artist alive right now that's female that has more professional fights than Roxanne Modafferi here at 44 professional fights. This is her retirement fight. This will be her 45th professional fight. If this fight goes into the third round, Roxanne Modafferi will have fought 500 minutes in the professional cage. She is an absolute pioneer of the sport. She deserves our respect and our admiration for what she's done and what she's given to this sport. And she's fighting a very tough, very hyped prospect here in Casey O'Neill, who only has 8 fights and in less than 100 minutes in the pro cage and has been doing this for less than 3 years, while Roxanne Modafferi has been doing this since Casey O'Neill was 5 years old. 8 more UFC fights for Roxanne, 140 more minutes in the cage for Roxanne. Roxanne has finished 36% of her pro wins inside the distance, while Casey O'Neill has finished 5 of her 8 pro wins inside the distance. And Roxanne has only been finished in 21% of her pro losses. So that would be 4 losses out of 19 has she been finished inside the distance. Roxanne is the least accurate striker in the women's featherweight division at 29.58%. She couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat, you guys. And she absorbs about 2 more significant strikes per minute than she lands. 54% striking defense. She has been knocked down twice in 11 fights, and she's gotten 1 knockdown in 11 fights. Casey O'Neill's very hittable on the feet, but I don't think that this is the fight where that's going to matter, you guys. I think we're going to have to see somebody that's a much better striker really exploit the lack of head movement and striking defense that Casey O'Neill has at this point in her career. If there's any hole that Roxanne Modafferi is going to find in Casey O'Neill's game, it's going to be in the grappling. This is what she does well, you guys. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. This is how she wins fights. She prefers to be on the ground. And as we can see here, Casey O'Neill is probably going to oblige her in that. And she's been in control time positions in her 3 UFC fights, about 75% of her UFC tenure thus far. And for Roxanne Modafferi, it's about 50%. So it's pretty safe to say that I don't think either one of these ladies really believes that their path to victory in this fight is to win a striking battle. We're going to find out which one of these ladies is the better grappler. Is it the young Casey O'Neill, or is it the old grizzled veteran Roxanne Modafferi? You know, Roxanne has never subbed anybody in the UFC. She does have 1 win by knockout. She's got great ground and pound. And we have seen Casey O'Neill be taken down and controlled for certain swaths of her UFC career, in particular the first round against Laura Procopio before she gassed out. But, you know, Modafferi has faced the better brand of competition. She's way more experienced here. You know, the striking is kind of negligible, and we're going to find out about the grappling. There's no way in hell that I'm betting Casey O'Neill here. And, you know, even the inside the distance bet, let's see where it's sitting. Because this line is absolutely too wide. I don't think Casey O'Neill, we've proven that she's that much better than Roxanne Modafferi anywhere other than the fact she's much younger and much hungrier and a better athlete. Other than that, Roxanne has been one of the top grapplers in this division for a long time, you know, in terms of her ability to win fights there. O'Neill inside the distance is plus money, plus 200. And actually, it's minus 400 for the money line and plus 200 for the inside the distance, I think that'd be something that I'd be willing to play, because they're talking about an 80% implied probability at minus 400, but at plus 200, you're getting 33% implied probability. That's a 47% discount in implied probability to take O'Neill inside the distance rather than just the plain money line. And what's interesting about that is she's finished all 3 of her UFC wins inside the distance. It's just that it's been a lower level of opponent. than Roxanne Modafferi, but Roxanne Modafferi has not been a world beater in the UFC. Her signature win is against Andrea Lee. The Macy Barber win is a great win as well, and she did it as a huge underdog, but I think it has to be mentioned that Macy blew out her knee in a non-contact injury about 10 seconds into that fight. So I think she was compromised from the word go. And we saw Roxanne, use her veteran savvy, get on top, ground and pound the hell out of Macy and make it kind of look easy. But Macy never gave up in that fight. I think Casey O'Neill should win this. I think she should win it inside the distance. It's always tough to bet on somebody that's got 1 foot out the door. But, there might be some couple of veteran tricks left in the bag here for Roxanne Modafferi, but I think that playing her at plus 200 inside the distance, and I'm talking about Casey O'Neill, is a far superior strategy than to paying minus 400 for her on the money line. I will pick Casey O'Neill to get this done. 3rd round knockout, I'll say. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight. We got another Andrei Arlovski fight, you guys, and this is the one that's happening right before the main card starts. Andrei Arlovski, 42, Vanderaa, 29. Vanderaa, the bigger man here, 1 inch of height, 3 inches of reach. It's Arlovski with about 300 more minutes in the pro cage and about 26 more professional fights and 32 more fights at the UFC level. So a huge experience advantage here for Arlovski. A nice little size advantage here for Vanderaa. Arlovski, 62% finisher as a pro. Vanderaa, 83% finisher as a pro. He's finished 10 of his 12 wins inside the distance. And then we've got Arlovski has been finished in 65% of his pro losses, while Vanderaa at 66%. That's a lot of combined losses. We got 4 of 6, and then 65 means 13. So 17 of 26 of these guys' losses have been inside the distance, and I bet we're getting plus money for fight doesn't go to decision. Could be a sneaky little analytics bet there, you guys. Both of these guys are throwing some decent output here. Good power for Arlovski here at about 0.8% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He lands more in a massive sample size than he absorbs. He'll probably be the better minute winner on the feet here, as we see Vanderaa absorbs a lot more than he lands. He has not knocked anyone down yet in the UFC, and he's showing sub 40% striking defense. Arlovski doesn't really shoot for takedowns. His fight stays standing about 75% of the time. Vanderaa is getting out-controlled very easily in the UFC, showing no wrestling defense and no ability to get up when he does get taken down. Maybe we might see Andrei Arlovski's first takedown attempt here in a very long time. I think that Arlovski's just way more experienced, the way more technical guy. He's fought the way better brand of competition, and he has a massive hole in the defensive grappling of Jared Vanderaa to take advantage of, should he do that, should he choose to do that. I understand why some people are taking Vanderaa here. He's 13 years younger. He's going to pressure Arlovski, maybe not give him the kind of fight that he wants, which is to kind of just stand back and point fight for 3 rounds and collect his check at the end of the day. But I just think the striking defense isn't there for Vanderaa. Arlovski is still winning fights at this level. He's still cashing checks. And I just think he's better everywhere than Jared Vanderaa. I'm going to be picking Andrei Arlovski to win this fight by decision. But I also think, heavyweight fights, you guys, this is a sneak peek at the finish stats by division here. Let me zoom in on this, you guys. This is finish rates by division, right? And we can see the finish percentage right here. So women's strawweights finish, this is since 2013. They finish at 31.8% of the time. Flyweight, 41.1. Women's bantamweight, 40.85. And then, we can go down here. We see that heavyweights fights are finishing almost 66% of the time. So that means, you should be paying minus 200 for fight doesn't go to decision, because that's the implied probability of the divisional finish rate here for heavyweights. But in this fight, instead of paying minus 200 for fight goes or doesn't go to decision, we're getting plus money at plus 150. So you're getting an implied probability at plus 150 that this fight finishes maybe 38% of the time, when in reality, heavyweight fights finish about 66% of the time. So it's a cheeky little analytics bet there where you could maybe throw down, a half unit to win, 0.75. Not a bad idea. It's something that works, and heavyweights hit hard, you guys, and Vanderaa has been finished inside the distance a lot, and Arlovski's been finished inside the distance in 13 of 20 pro losses, so could be an interesting little bet there, but I still think that Andrei Arlovski by decision is probably the way that this thing happens, and Arlovski by decision right now is not, plus 135. So you're not getting that much juice to go to the decision over the minus 140 for the money line. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Andrei Arlovski to win this one by decision, you guys. Thank you, all 44 of you guys that are hanging out with me live here on a Tuesday night. We're about an hour and 10 minutes in here, and we've got 5 more fights to break down, and then we're going to finish up with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, where I'm going to tell you who's going to win this one violently and quickly and really walk into the cage with a razor and some shaving cream ready to shave some ass. But here we go, the kickoff of the pay-per-view card, you guys. Bobby King Green against Nasrat Haqparast. I debated this fight with Liam Picks Fights on Pub Sports Radio earlier today. Check that out on Pub Sports Radio. That'll be debuting tomorrow, I believe. And we talked about this fight. And I was given the Nasrat Haqparast side, even though I think Bobby Green wins this fight. I had to argue in favor of Nasrat Haqparast. But it's Nasrat who's 9 years younger here. He's 26 and Bobby Green is 35. So that's a nice little advantage to have in the tail of the tape, in addition to a 1-inch reach advantage. And he's a southpaw against an orthodox fighter in Bobby Green. But it's Bobby Green who obviously has a huge experience advantage here. 300 more minutes in the pro cage, 5 more years as a pro, 24 more professional fights, and 9 more fights at the UFC level, and over 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. So while we got Nasrat with a nice little tail of the tape advantage, being younger and having a little bit of reach, we got Bobby Green with a huge experience advantage here. Nasrat only finishes fights as a pro by knockout. He's never submitted anybody, while Bobby Green is a true equal opportunity finisher, 32% by submission, 32% by knockout, 36% by decision. And Bobby Green, in his 12 professional fights, has been finished, I believe, 4 times, twice by knockout, twice by submission, while Haqparast has been finished in 2 of his 4 professional losses. Both of these guys are very good in the stand-up. Bobby Green lands almost 2 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs in a 17-fight sample size, you guys. 52% accuracy, 3 knockdowns in 17 UFC fights, averaging 0.21 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and 62% striking defense, and he's been knocked down 3 times in 17 fights, 0.21 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes. Haqparast is landing about 1.7 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs. Not quite as accurate as Bobby Green, but a lot more powerful. He's landed 1 more knockdown in the UFC than Bobby Green has, despite the fact that he's got 9 less fights. So Nasrat's going to have the power advantage here. And then also a 71.66% striking defense for Nasrat Haqparast is elite for the lightweight division, but Bobby Green doing very well in the defensive area as well at 62.25%. Both these guys are getting knocked down about the same rate, although it's been Bobby Green getting knocked down just a little bit more. But I'm going to still give Nasrat Haqparast potentially a very small striking advantage here, but I think it's going to be very close in the striking. I think the biggest difference here is that Nasrat Haqparast attempts less than 1 takedown per fight, while Bobby Green attempts almost 3. And that Bobby Green is averaging 1.37 takedowns per 15 minutes, while Nasrat Haqparast gets about a sixth of a takedown per 15 minutes. And Bobby Green is out-controlling his opponents at a 16.69% to 10.54% ratio, while Haqparast is getting out-controlled by his opponents at like a 3-to-1 ratio, 5% to 16.36%. We did see some holes in that takedown defense against Dan Hooker in the last fight for Haqparast, and I believe that while this fight will be close on the feet, that Bobby Green will be the one that's able to say, when I want to win minutes grappling, I can in this fight. And that's why I'm leaning Bobby Green to win this fight by decision. We have seen Haqparast knocked out once in the UFC. It was by Drew Dober, who's an excellent kickboxer. But let's face it, you guys, Bobby Green, not much of a finisher. He finished Ali Aquinta, who had 1 foot out the door in his last fight. But this guy is really not finishing a lot of guys. Other than that, he's finished 3 of his 9 UFC wins, but the 2 of them were the very first 2 UFC fights that he had. Then 6 decisions in a row, and then he beat up on a real estate agent. Let's be real, Iaquinta's done. So I believe Bobby Green by decision is the way to go. He's got a big strength to schedule advantage here, fought the much tougher brand of competition and beaten the tougher brand of competition and lost to the better brand of competition here. So Bobby Green with a grappling advantage, a strength to schedule advantage, an experience advantage, and I believe a speed advantage here and a conditioning advantage, while it's Haqparast who has the power, and I think the striking exchanges will be very close. But other than that, I don't think Haqparast has much to draw from here. So Bobby Green, you guys, by decision. Let me see where that's sitting right now. Bobby Green by decision is plus 145 on BetOnline, plus 170 on FanDuel. And I also do have my only bet that I've actually placed this week, you guys, is that the fight goes to decision here, which I got, I believe, at minus 160 on FanDuel. It's still available there. Everywhere else, it's minus 190 to minus 200. But fight goes to decision for this fight, I think, is an excellent bet. Green and Haqparast are not great finishers at the UFC level, and they're both pretty durable. And I think that, this fight will take place standing quite a bit, and you'll see that, Green not a potent finisher, and Haqparast is probably going to have a hard time finding Bobby Green here. So I like the fight goes to decision for this fight at minus 160, and I think the other bet will be a Bobby Green by decision bet at plus 170. I might be throwing 3/4 of a unit on that. So let's move on to the next fight. This is an interesting one, you guys. I'm not exactly sure why it's on the main card, other than the fact that they really are trying to hype up Kyler Phillips. This feels like a setup matchup for him. A 33-year-old bantamweight in Marcelo Rojo, who only has 1 UFC fight, who has 7 career losses in 23 fights, 5 of them coming inside the distance, being subbed 4 times, knocked out once. And they're putting him on the main card despite the fact that Marcelo Rojo is 0-1 in the UFC. It feels like a setup fight, you guys, for Kyler Phillips here, the Matrix. And Kyler Phillips, as we can see here, is 7 years younger. They're the same height, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. We got Marcelo fighting out of Entrum Gym in the happiest place on earth, Tijuana, Baja, Mexico. And we got Kyler Phillips fighting out of the MMA lab in Arizona. Okay. Marcelo Rojo with a 12-fight pro experience advantage and a 50 more minutes in the cage and 5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. But it's Kyler Phillips who has fought half of his career at the UFC level, while from Rojo, it's less than 5% of his career. Rojo was fighting a lot of fights in Combate, and when we actually look at his record prior to the UFC, you'll see a lot of names on there that you recognize. Castaneda. He was in the Ultimate Fighter House in South America, fighting guys like Puelles, and I know he has a loss to Puelles in the house, but he's got a win over Jesse Strader, He's got a win over Victor Madrigal, the loss to Charles Jourdain in the UFC, the loss to Castaneda. Got a win over Julian Erosa's brother. And I thought there were some other names, but maybe I'm wrong. He's got 2 wins over Enrique Silva. I don't know who that is. And then he went to ACB and got choked out there and then said, you know what, I'll come right back to South America. Those ACB guys aren't kind to people that fly in to fight them. So anyway, as we move on here, we're going to see that, like I say, Rojo's been finished in 71%, so 5 of his 7 losses, but he's got an 88% finish rate as a pro in his wins. So he's definitely a potent finisher. 13 of 16 wins coming inside the distance, while Kyler Phillips has finished 6 of his 9 wins inside the distance, and he's never been finished. When we look at the striking numbers here, Marcelo Rojo is getting outlanded by a lot. We've only got 1 fight to lean on here, 36% striking accuracy, no knockdowns, and he was actually knocked down twice in 106 significant strikes absorbed by Charles Jourdain. And it was Kyler Phillips who outlands his opponents 5.2 to 3.15, 50% striking accuracy. He's landed 2 knockdowns in 268 significant strikes. And he's showing over 60% striking defense. Excellent wrestling, having 11 takedowns in 5 fights and averaging over 3 takedowns for 15 minutes. And Marcelo Rojo has been controlled for 20% of his UFC career by a guy that doesn't even wrestle. I think that's Jourdain's first takedown in the UFC. So I think that, on the feet, this is going to be very exciting. Both of these guys throw absolute heat, and they're absolutely trying to kill each other when they're on the feet. But I just think that Kyler Phillips is going to have a very easy time whenever he's uncomfortable on the feet, getting this fight to the ground. And then we see that Rojo's been submitted 4 times in his pro career. I think that Kyler Phillips could potentially get a submission here, even though he only has 1 career win by submission. We do know he's got great grappling. He's out controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, and he's out takedowning his opponents 11-4 in 5 fights. So he's shown and demonstrated the ability to win minutes on the ground. And I also think that he's actually going to be the better striker here as well, even though Rojo's very dangerous. He's a very potent finisher in his own right. And if you don't mind your P's and Q's with him, he can absolutely catch you. But, when you look at the names on Kyler Phillips' resume, wins over Gabriel Silva, Cameron Else, Song Yadong. There's not one name on Marcelo Rojo's resume as a win that's better than any of those. The biggest win is against Jesse Strader, I would say, or Victor Madrigal. I don't know who Fabian Gaivan is. Michael Erosa, 12-5, Billy Molina, 5-3, Ivan Hernandez Flores, 8-1, Gilbert Ordonez Julia. These guys are 7-0, and then all of a sudden you see they're 10-4 once they start to fight some decent guys. So, yeah, it doesn't look like this is going to be that difficult for Kyler Phillips here. I think the Matrix is going to get Marcelo Rojo out of there in the 2nd round by knockout or even potentially by submission. But I'm going to be picking Kyler Phillips to win this one inside the distance, you guys. Jared Cannonier against Blonde Brunson. You guys, this is a great fight. And I did a balls deep breakdown of this one on my channel just last night. So I'm going to kind of skim through this one because you can get an in-depth breakdown on my channel on this fight into all the aspects of it. But it's going to be Derek Brunson, who's got a little bit of a size advantage here. Both of these guys have a 77-inch reach. Brunson is 38, Cannonier 37, but these guys are only 2 months apart. So they're basically the exact same age. It's Brunson, who's a southpaw, and Cannonier fighting out of both stances here. Sanford MMA for Brunson, MMA Lab for Jared Cannonier. Derek Brunson is 5-0 since switching over to Sanford MMA. It's going to be Brunson with an experience advantage here and a UFC experience advantage here. 7 more UFC fights, 11 more pro fights, 1 more year as a pro, and about 40 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both of these guys knock out their opponents more than they submit them. And both of these guys have been finished inside the distance. Cannonier twice, and Brunson 5 times. So the stats that I want to, you guys, like I said, you can download the stats for free in the description of this video. But I'm going to just, since you can look at the stats that are on the screen, I'm going to go over the Sanford Brunson stats. So these are the last 5 fights since Brunson stopped training in his garage by himself and started going to a real camp to get some real coaching. Since he's went to Sanford, Brunson is 5-0 with 2 finishes. He's 19 of 45 on his takedowns for 42.2% takedown accuracy. He's controlling his opponents 42.3% of his fights and only being controlled 2.7% of his fights. And he's strength of schedule is the combined sum of the wins and losses of his opponents is 32 and 18 for a 1.78 win to loss ratio. And then I want to bring up Cannonier's stats, but only Cannonier's stats in the middleweight division, you guys. I got him as 4-1 with 3 finishes. And Cannonier has had 26 takedowns shot against him as a middleweight, and he's stopped 22 of them for an 85% takedown defense as a middleweight. He has controlled his opponents 3.13% of the time and been controlled 13.3% of the time. And the strength of schedule is better than Sanford's, which is a 2.03 ratio for Cannonier, 1.78 for Brunson at Sanford, and a 55 and 27 combined record. So really, I think it's pretty simple to break down this fight. We know that Derek Brunson has been using his wrestling to win minutes, bank rounds, and win fights ever since he got to Sanford MMA. And Jared Cannonier likes to keep the fight standing. He likes to kickbox. He switched stances. He throws heavy leg kicks, and he's got a ton of power. As a matter of fact, in the 5 fights that Cannonier has had as a middleweight, he's got 4 knockdowns, and he's landing a knockdown on 2% of the significant strikes that he's throwing. So this guy is absolutely hurting people. Jared Cannonier is going to be the far better striker, and Derek Brunson is the far better grappler. Which one of these guys is going to get their game plan off? I have been really impressed with Cannonier's ability to stop takedowns at the UFC level, it's particularly as a middleweight. We've seen David Branch try to take him down, and Branch had a lot of success in the first round wearing on him, but eventually Cannonier just kept getting up. And like I say, he's showing 85% takedown defense as a middleweight, and he's only been controlled for about an eighth of the cage time that he's been in the cage as a middleweight. So in my opinion, Derek Brunson is going to have to continue doing exactly what he's been doing, which is controlling his opponents about 42% of the time in order to win enough minutes on the ground that he can win a decision should this go the full 3 rounds. Because I do believe that it will be Cannonier landing the heavier shots on the feet, throwing more, and landing the heavier leg kicks. And I think the longer this stays on the feet, the more leg kicks Cannonier lands, the more difficult it's going to be for Brunson to wrestle and wrestle effectively. I am picking Jared Cannonier to win this fight by decision, although I do think that there's a very good chance that he can win this fight inside the distance if Brunson cannot get his wrestling game going. I don't think I'll be betting on this fight, though, because Derek Brunson's wrestling has been absolutely next level as a middleweight. Brunson is going to be the best wrestler that Cannonier has faced as a middleweight, and Brunson's wrestling numbers are absolutely unreal for this division. I think he might be the best wrestler in this division. So Jared Cannonier's takedown defense, grappling defense, gas tank, and wherewithal are going to be tested heavily on Saturday. But I do think he's going to be up to it. I think he's going to keep this fight standing long enough in order to win this fight by decision, you guys. The co-main event here, Derek Lewis against Tai Tuivasa. Great heavyweight scrap. 2 guys with a ton of power who are in a ton of fun fights, and they're both really likable. Derek Lewis, some of the best post-fight interviews in the game, some of the best Instagram game that there is. And Tai Shuivasa, drinking beers out of shoes, starching dudes in the first round, having lots of fun, walking out to the Spice Girls, Do You Want to Be My Lover? I think that this is going to be a really fun fight for the fans. What a great co-main event for the UFC 271 pay-per-view. And, you know, I could sit here and break down this fight, you guys, and tell you that I've got all these angles. Dude, these are two 265-pound men with bricks for hands that knock people out at crazy rates. I don't know who's going to win this fight. I do know that Tai Tuivasa is 8 years younger, but that he's going to be giving up an inch of height and 4 inches of reach. Tuivasa is a southpaw. Derek Lewis is an orthodox fighter. That means the power hand and the power kicks are going to be open for both of these guys, open for business. You know, and just before we go any further, if you want to have a good laugh and you think, hey, I wonder if the bookies aren't on doesn't go to decision yet. Dude, fight doesn't go to decision is minus 650 on DraftKings right now. They're all over it. There's no value in that line. But I'm telling you, man, this fight is going to end inside the distance. These guys hit so hard. I mean, maybe if you want a fun little lottery ticket, take fight goes to decision. You could probably get plus 400 at Fight Time for that. And you could put a little bit on it and just hope that this fight winds up exactly like which one was it? Lewis against Ngannou or Lewis against Ngannou. That was the worst fight of all time. But anyway, these guys are total power punchers here. It's going to be Derek Lewis who has the much he's not only going to be the bigger man here, he's the much more experienced fighter, and he's fought the much tougher brand of competition. Derek Lewis finishes 85% of his pro wins. Tai Tuivasa finishes 92% of his pro wins. And both these guys get finished a ton as well, as Tuivasa has been finishing 2 out of 3 losses, and Derek Lewis has been finished in 7 of 8 losses. So 9 of 11 losses combined for these guys have finished inside the distance. You know, so they're finishing at like an almost 90% rate combined in their wins, and basically, you know, over an 80% combined rate in their losses. So you know why this fight doesn't go is just juice to the tits here. Lewis lands a little bit more than he absorbs. He's landing a knockdown on 1.5% of the total significant strikes that he lands, 0.55 knockdowns for 15 minutes. While Tai Tuivasa's offensive numbers look a little bit better. He's a little more accurate, landing knockdowns on a higher percentage of the significant strikes that he lands, and about 3 times as many knockdowns for 15 minutes for Tai Tuivasa. Tuivasa, though, has been a little bit chinnier up here, and he's absorbing more significant strikes per minute than Derek Lewis is. Lewis showing 41% striking defense, though, while Tai Tuivasa showing about 50% striking defense. Tai Tuivasa, also one of his best weapons is the low leg kick. He lands a ton of them, and I think we could see him have a lot of success with that low leg kick here. I think that's going to be the X factor. But the other X factor, in my opinion, is the fact that Derek Lewis has grappled a little bit here. He's gotten 7 takedowns in 23 fights. And when he gets on top, he has terrifying ground and pound. And Tai Tuivasa only showing 50% takedown defense in the UFC and has shown nothing from his back. So I think that we could see Derek Lewis, if he doesn't like how this is going on the feet, shoot a blast double, get on top, and potentially get a ground and pound finish here. I think that this is going to be very close on the feet. Obviously, Derek Lewis has a ton of power, just as much as Tai Tuivasa, even though the numbers say that Tuivasa is landing more knockdowns per significant strikes landed and all that stuff. Derek Lewis is still the knockout king of the UFC. And so Derek Lewis with a big experience advantage here. I would give Derek Lewis a grappling advantage here should he choose to use it. And he's got a huge strength to schedule advantage here. I think it's going to be close on the feet, but with all those advantages going to Derek Lewis and this really nice strength to schedule advantage here, having a better ratio and similar amount of total fights and having a better ratio in his wins and a better ratio in total fights in his losses, I think that this is going to be Derek Lewis by knockout. in the very first round. Derek Lewis was pissed off after his last fight, saying, I'm sick of these 5-round fights, man. Well, he got a 3-round fight. He got what he wanted, and he got it against a fellow banger who hits like a truck. Can't wait for the co-main event of UFC 271, you guys. I'm picking the Black Beast to get this one done by knockout. And here we go. The main event of the evening. One of the links that's in the description of this video is going to be the main event breakdown I did on my guy Brady's channel. Did that one on Monday afternoon. We went in depth into the main event of UFC 271, the middleweight championship of the world. At stake, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. All right, here we go. It's going to be Robert Whittaker 1 year younger, but it's going to be a huge size advantage here for Adesanya as he's 4 inches taller and fights with a 7-inch reach advantage and fights out of both stances against the orthodox Robert Whittaker. City kickboxing for Adesanya, PMA martial arts for Robert Whittaker. It's a 6-fight pro advantage for Whittaker and about 60 more minutes in the pro cage and 3 more years as a pro. And he's also got 6 more UFC level fights and about 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. So definitely a size advantage for Adesanya, definitely an experience advantage for Whittaker. Adesanya is a kickboxer through and through. He's never submitted anybody. And he's never been finished. In his 22 professional fights, he's 21-1. He's finished 71% of those 21 wins inside the distance by knockout. The other 29% have been decision wins, while Robert Whittaker in his 23 wins has a 61% finish rate, 39% by knockout, 22% by sub, and Whittaker has been finished in 3 of his 5 career losses. The striking advantage here, it absolutely goes to Israel Adesanya. Not only is he the middleweight champion, not only is he undefeated as a middleweight, he is the elite striker in this division. And until somebody actually outstrikes this guy, you know, we're going to have to keep saying the exact same thing. He's landing almost 4 significant strikes a minute, absorbing only 2.59. He's 50% accurate. He's landing a knockdown on 1.5% of the significant strikes that he's landing. That means that he's landed 11 UFC knockdowns, Israel Adesanya has, in only 11 UFC fights. That's just under 1 knockdown per 15 minutes. While Whittaker has a 42% striking accuracy, he's landed 10 knockdowns in 17 UFC fights, and that's 0.64 knockdowns for 15 minutes. So he's showing some power of his own. It's Adesanya with a slightly better striking defense here. Israel Adesanya has never been knocked down, you guys, in 11 UFC fights, while Robert Whittaker has been knocked down 6 times in 17 UFC fights. So big-time striking advantage here for Adesanya on the feet. Adesanya does not go for takedowns, and Whittaker in 17 UFC fights has only attempted 29 takedowns. That's less than 2 takedown attempts per fight, and he's getting less than 1 takedown per fight. 10 takedowns in 17 UFC fights. He's getting these takedowns at a little bit better than a 1/3 clip. It's almost 2/3 of a takedown per 15 minutes, and he's only averaging under 11% control time in a 17-fight sample size. So I've been hearing some people saying that, you know, in order for Whittaker to kind of throw a new wrinkle into this fight, he's going to have to employ the Jan Blachowicz game plan. Well, in order to employ the Jan Blachowicz game plan, he's going to have to be about 50 pounds heavier than he was on weigh-in day, because that's about how much Jan Blachowicz weighed when he fought Israel Adesanya. The problem is that Whittaker is a middleweight, and he used to fight at welterweight. So he's not Blachowicz's size, and he doesn't have the wrestling chops that Blachowicz has. When you have a 17-fight sample size, you guys, you don't magically turn into something that you've never been for your entire career. And Robert Whittaker has never been a grappler in his entire career. He does have grappling chops. He has won fights by submission, never in the UFC though. But he's only attempting, 1.7 takedowns per fight. He's getting less than a takedown per fight. And he even said it himself, how difficult Israel Adesanya is to take down and hold down. Look at this. Israel Adesanya, over an 11-fight sample size, his opponents have been attempting 6.5 takedown attempts per fight against this guy, but he only gets taken down 1.13 times per 15 minutes, and he's being controlled less than 15% of his UFC career. That would be about 27 minutes on 14 takedowns. So he can be taken down. He can be held down. But Robert Whittaker, this is a 5-round fight. To push a wrestling-heavy game plan is going to take massive conditioning. It's going to take a massive gas tank. And you don't develop the gas tank to push that kind of game plan unless it's something that you've been doing your entire career. He doesn't do that. It's not his style. If he goes out here and he wrestles early and often and doesn't get Israel out of there in the first 2 rounds, he's going to be completely gassed. And we don't see Israel getting gassed late in fights. This guy gets better as the fight goes on, and it's so much easier to defensively wrestle on your gas tank than it is to offensively wrestle. So I don't think Robert Whittaker, even though I think that he is the better grappler, I think that he is the better wrestler, and I think that he has the better chance to win minutes on the feet here. I think the likelihood that he's going to win enough minutes to bank a decision here or bank 3 rounds on the judges' scorecards, I think that the chance of that happening is slimmer than Jim. And then when we look at the strength of schedule numbers here too, you guys, 2.82 ratio for Adesanya, 1.81 for Whittaker, and Adesanya's opponents are actually more experienced. So the wins, the losses, and the overall competition all in Israel Adesanya's favor. The striking in Israel Adesanya's favor. The massive size advantage in Israel Adesanya's favor. I think Robert Whittaker has a grappling advantage, and he has an experience advantage. But unless he can use that experience in order to find a way to win enough minutes in the grappling, which is something that we haven't seen anybody at middleweight do yet against Israel Adesanya, I think that's the only way for him to win this fight. And if he can't do that, I think Israel Adesanya is going to win this fight. I think he's a parlay piece, you guys. And I think we're going to hear and still at the end of this fight, whether it's a late knockout or whether it's a unanimous decision on the judges' scorecards, you guys. The pick is going to be Israel Adesanya and still UFC 271 main event winner. You guys, my guy Blood Money MMA Bets in the room here saying, your percentage of the Nick Maximov bet you talked me into. I wish I would have bet more, LOL. Can't wait for the next one this week. You got me a little bit nervous, Blood Money, when you said, you know what, I'm canceling my bet on Puna and I'm betting on Nick Maximov after I talked you into it, because the last thing I ever want to do is talk somebody into a losing bet. So the pressure was on. But, we did say something that was an absolute fact. Nobody had tested Puna's defensive wrestling yet in the UFC. And let's face it, Nick Maximov put it to the test for a full 15 minutes, and he potentially almost drowned Puna there. Fantastic win for Nick Maximov there. I'm glad he cashed that bet. And let's see if we can cash one more bet on one thing that's left to talk about here, like we always do at the end of Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. It's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Who is going to win in violent fashion this week? And there are so many good choices. Israel Adesanya, Tuivasa or Lewis. Whoever wins that fight's going to win in violent fashion. Cannonier could absolutely melt Derek Brunson if Brunson can't get his wrestling game going. Kyler Phillips, Casey O'Neill, Alex Perez, Knight or Grishin, Martinez could knock out Ronnie Lawrence in the first round, and Lawrence can get a wrestling-based decision. Hernandez, Moicano, Ulberg, Cherant. Man, Cherant's chin. I might want to target that. Dude, AJ Dobson looks terrifying. Dude, Jeremiah Wells looks terrifying. There are so many guys that I want to pick for the ass shaving of the week, but I can only pick one, you guys. And I was going through it, and I was like, I don't know enough about Blood Diamond to pick against him. He's been training with Israel Adesanya. Maybe his kickboxing's awesome. And then I was worried that Malkoun would do to me exactly the same thing that he did when I picked Abdul Razak Al Hassan to shave his ass. So I couldn't pull the trigger there. And I think Fabio Cherant is getting better, but I think Carlos Ulberg is going to touch that chin and absolutely sleep him. And then I also think that Kyler Phillips is being set up for a main card win and to do it in spectacular fashion. So who's it going to be, guys? Who should it be? You tell me in the chat. Should it be Carlos Ulberg or should it be Kyler the Matrix Phillips? I know who I'm picking. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? And thank you once again, Blood Money MMA Bets, for the kind donation. Ring-a-ding-ding. Always appreciated when somebody donates to the show. If you guys haven't already, hit that big up that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. But this week, you guys, Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Kyler the Matrix Phillips. The win over Song Yadong proved that this guy can beat high-level bantamweight competition. And Marcelo Rojo is getting older. He's very aggressive. He's very explosive, but he's also been finished in 5 of his 7 losses. I don't know what he's doing on the main card unless they're trying to build up Kyler Phillips and give Kyler Phillips the exact kind of opponent that he can bring that razor and shaving cream into the cage on Saturday night on the UFC 271 main card and make your Uncle Weezy look like a genius. Kyler the Matrix Phillips is your ass shaving of the week, you guys. We got it done. 15 fights in under 2 hours. I was more economical with my time. We got 15 picks. We got some spots to make money. Listen, you guys, I appreciate each and every one of the 53 people that have been hanging out in here for almost 2 hours, breaking down 15 fights for UFC 271 with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am going to go put timestamps on this video and finish this Paloma and think about how lucky I am to be able to break down fights with you, the best audience in the YouTube community. God bless each and every one of you. You guys, let's stack cashed tickets like flapjacks in UFC 271 and keep the 5-fight or the 5 event tracked bet winning streak that I got going. Let's make it 6 in a row. You guys, thanks for hanging out. I will catch you tomorrow night on Pub Sports Radio, 6 p.m. Central Time for the DFS show, and then right back here on my channel, 10 o'clock tomorrow night for the last Balls Deep breakdown of the week. Hit me up on Twitter if you have any special requests for what fight you want me to break down, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Guys, have a great night.